Hello and welcome to Weight of Fire podcast. I'm joined again by my friend Claudio. Hello, Claudio. And we are going to be talking today a little bit about the new factions on the horizon, the Matsudan and Nightstalker lists that are going to be hitting our tables for the summer of sci-fi. So, Claudio, what were some of the ideas behind making Matsudan their own team and bringing the Nightstalkers into the Deadzone universe? It's been talked about for a while, but what were some of the design thoughts initially?
Okay, it's two different takes there. I've been listening to the Countercharge podcast today. They were talking about, with the Firefight RC, about the Matsudan lists, and I think the last episode about the Nightstalkers and how they came to be. And the interesting thing is that they also mentioned that the Nightstalkers were done from the Firefight perspective. So Mantic started making, we want Nightstalkers in Firefight. Let's do that. And we will also have them in Deadzone. And the Matsudan was quite the opposite. Mantic said, okay, we want the Matsudan to be their own thing, their own faction in Deadzone, and we will then add them to the Asterians in Firefight. So two completely different approaches there, but we worked closely together to really get the connection going so that when you're fighting, playing Firefight, you have no issues playing on the smaller scale and the other way around. So we tried that every gun name and every profile name and so on was as close as possible and has like the same role. It can't be always like exactly the same, but that it works. And yeah, so that's like the disclaimer, how that like the first rough stage was like concepted.
So I mean that's really interesting to say you come from that kind of Firefight point of view. You know, Firefight's less on my periphery than the Deadzone. I mean, I play Firefight far less than Deadzone. I just find the ease of getting a smaller scale out on the table and getting playing a lot quicker is just suits my lifestyle at the minute. But in Deadzone specifically, what kind of makes them different from what's come before? What sets them apart?
Yeah, I think when Nightstalkers were announced, let's start with Nightstalkers. When they were announced, there were many voices, I'd say, that said, well, they are just nameless. They stick together because you have in the nameless, you have that Cthulhu, aquatic, alien, horror theme a bit going. And then the Nightstalkers have a really strong horror theme, obviously, but it's not that aquatic one. So at first you might think it's like the Lovecraftian astral horrors, and the others are maybe the aquatic horrors, but they are more different than that. So with that, from a fluff perspective, because nameless like have technology, different species and so on, it's quite something else. So from a design perspective for Deadzone, when we knew which units would be used, the Firefight RC talked with Mantic about that, because not everything from the Kings of War range was used, especially the more fantasy-like creatures, because riding a horse just doesn't fit. So when we knew what we'd have to work with, and we saw what the Firefight RC came up with, we then I had to think, okay, how do we do these? These are not alien, extra like dimensional things. So they shouldn't be aliens, and they shouldn't feel like aliens. And Miguel from the RC came up with the first drafts, and while I was doing the Matsudan drafts, and I have to be honest here, I think I maybe had real nightmares about the Nightstalkers, and I'm thinking I'm not the only one, because we were tweaking them nonstop. These will feel completely different to any faction you've ever played in Deadzone. They are completely unique. So first of all, they feel like a glass hammer, most of the units. So they may be a bit harder to hit because like they are not really here. but then if you get to hit them, they're gone.
Right.
And then again, if they get to you, it can be nasty. And to balance glass cannons, especially in close combat, is really, really hard. So we had several drafts, and in the end, we came up with a new keyword especially for the Nightstalkers, which was used much more at the beginning. And this new keyword is elusive.
That's right, yeah.
I mean,
that came up in our Hand of the Seven report last time, because some of them keywords are kind of cross-pollinated, aren't they?
Yeah. Hand of the Seven. It's elusive works for those a bit dodgy.
That gives you
like not dodging.
Extra dice in survive. Is that right, elusive?
Yeah, you get an extra dice against shooting only. Right. Because resilient, you get like the reroll for every survive, but only if you get shot by a normal weapon, have a survive against a shoot X test, you get that extra die because you're harder to hit. So in the themed lists, we've talked about that there are maybe a few characters who are really like dodging bullets and really good at being stealthy. But the core of the elusive keyword for the Nightstalkers is the ethereal units have that. Like butchers are a big mass of flesh. They won't have it. But there are other units who like fit the bill quite well. And so we had this keyword to make them otherworldly, I'd say.
Right.
So this is one part, yeah.
It's really interesting. It's a good keyword because it's not something we've seen before. So that immediately stands them out as a faction on their own because they've got something unique to them. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing, maybe even the lists will be out when this goes live, so you can check that out. But anyway, another part we really wanted to emphasize the otherworldliness, this ethereal thing, is with armor. The armor value, you think about like enforcers being the armored sci-fi troopers. Then you have the GCPS, you usually aren't armored. Like you have the plates, but it doesn't really help. So we were thinking about, okay, these are horrors that have a bit of sometimes a bit of a fantasy aesthetic, so no real guns or something. So we went there, and not a single unit in this army list has armor.
Right.
And very few units, especially in close combat, have armor penetration.
Right, okay.
So the idea is the concept of armor when you're drifting through realities in the void isn't really known. Yeah. I mean, some like beams can pierce through armor, or like some claws obviously can smash armor, but it's not something you're really good with.
Right.
So this also brings something completely new in there, and also talking about nameless, which are rather armored, to be honest, and it's something completely different there again. And the nameless have prey as also one of their main keywords, which the Nightstalkers don't have, even if it could fit maybe from their perspective, but we have other gadgets in there to help them out. And in the end, we're really, really happy with how the list turned out. It's not, I'd say, it's not a really beginner-friendly list, because it's one of the lists where you really see that Deadzone now is over 10 years old. It's in its third edition, and we just can't do like another plague or nameless list because no one would be interested in that. So
no, people don't want just a rehash with different models.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Nightstalkers really are this, because also the units are really, really different. Because if you look at them, you see they aren't like the same. Like humans are humans, with a few exceptions. And here you have so many different things. You have the big meaty butchers, you have the spindly reapers who are hard to hit, you have the ethereal specters and scarecrows, and fiends who are more like insects a bit, and psychic units. So overall, you have so many different styles and tropes. it's a bit harder if you play that because they are so different. The stat lines are at some point completely different from one another. So remembering that and a few special rules sparkled in there could be a bit harder, but then again, we really tried, and I think we achieved it, that it's not overcomplicated. It's just you have to think a bit differently than you usually do, maybe with when playing something like Plague or so.
That's the Nightstalker differences. What about Matsudan? What sets them apart? We've seen the Matsudan in the Asterian lists before, but now they're getting their own kind of list themselves.
Yeah, Matsudan was a tough one because then again, we all already seen that. You've said that, so people know what they are like, what to expect from them. And starting with that, we have like a troop choice, which is a melee choice, and melee, and 2 ranged specialists and a leader. So there was like the normal rifle guy was missing, and now we get the awesome new plastic sprues where you have all the options. So you can build the Sekivakis, you can build the special weapons, you have the rifles, you have also a leader for firefight, which can also be used as a Toshiori leader with rifle now, besides the old pistol resin option. So first of all, a new rifle guy as the core of this list.
He's great.
And then the rest, and the rest is, let's see, what do we want in there? What are the Matsudan? Where do we want to go? The theme is really unique and striking. The Japanese sumo samurai lizards who are like sumo fat, so round. And I spoke with Dave from Mantic at the beginning. He had a few ideas in which direction we could go there, and then we were given like free reign, and he said like, okay, do something. What do you want to see, from style wise, model wise, rules wise? So we really started more or less from a blank, and thought about, okay, how do we make them special? Because they won't be leaving the Asterian list, because that would be bad. People want to still have them in there, and they are in the firefight, they are one army. But we wanted to really make them different. First of all, make them different, and they still have marionettes. How does that work? Because you need the marionettes in there. It's they are connected to them, lore perspective, and we need a few more models. We can't have a completely new range. And that was one of the first, not the first, but one of the bigger things we had to think about. And I really did a deep dive, a few evenings and days into Japanese mythology lore, sumo lore, sumo words. It was crazy. It was something new for me. But as a historian, I stumbled upon one word, the haniwa. Those are old terracotta or so statuettes, old ones in Japanese history, which are used for like ancestral, not rituals, but like religious purposes, so to say. So they have maybe the souls of the ancestors, roughly. And so I thought, well, that's an interesting concept, because you have those innate objects like the haniwas, like they are constructs. How can we combine that? And so the marionettes were like reborn as haniwa marionettes or haniwas, because they have a different AI in there. They aren't controlled by an Asterian in the orbit, having those 10 marionettes walking around because he wants that. But the Matsudan came up with an AI, like giving them some kind of souls. And that changed the marionettes, because these ones aren't constructs anymore. These ones have honorable. So they have built in the ideals and the really the culture of the Matsudan.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, they are able to augment their weaponry.
Yeah, that's another big keyword for this faction, isn't it? Augmented.
There is
comes up a few times.
Second new big keyword, which was teased in one of the first themed lists. So augmented is really a big one, especially for the Haniwa in this list. So they can be pinned. They have headstrong because they are still some kind of constructs over in the end. Yeah. Honorable is a bad keyword, but we will come to that a bit later. Mm-hmm. And so they are more glass cannons, because augmented, you can reroll 2 dice if you want to. You have to say it before rolling the dice, but then you have to do a survive test, and you need to have 2 successes or you lose 1 HP.
Yeah.
And every time you use this, you have to roll at the end for every time you use. So if you're shooting 2 times with a command die, you have to do it 2 times, and if you fail 2 times, you die because you overclock it too much. So that was also a design idea, to have the Matsudan are the really chunky lizards, size 2, 3 HP, armored, 4 up survive. So they, and most of the time, only a 5 up shoot or fight. So they aren't really killy, but they have their Haniwa who support them, who do maybe the glass cannon work you may need.
I mean, I really like that risk reward going on. You've got that choice in game all the time. Are you going to push it? And I'm foolish. I always risk. And it always blows up in my face. But to have that extra option as and I play tested a few of these Matsudan units as part of the RC. So using those Haniwa was really quite a nice addition, I have to say.
They feel I think they feel really different to the Styrian ones. Also, their role is something completely different, because you have glass cannons in the Styrians, you have Kalishi, you have ciphers, obviously. And then the marionettes are more the swarmy, going somewhere, having 2 HP, surviving maybe a bit better against some enemy types. This isn't needed in the Matsudan list. And so from the lore perspective, coming in there again, changing the rules to make something new, which is still really, really close to the original marionettes, so that you don't feel I have the same miniatures, but they are doing something completely different. It's just the AI changed.
Yeah,
they feel like they are alive somehow a bit. And it's, you said it's fun to play them. I've played them quite often, obviously, and I'm always going for, in the first 1-2 turns, always augmenting, getting as much damage out there, and that can be really scary when you play against them. But if you don't deliver, your army is falling apart. And if you're not really lucky, your army is falling apart in round 3, because you can't do it again, because you already have a wound, don't want to risk that 50-50. Then something comes in there, fights against your wounded marionette, which is then obviously gone. So it's an interesting gamble.
Definitely.
And we have something new in there too. Those who have checked the firefight lists, the Haniwa duel lists, because swords and katanas just work, and they complement the other units quite well. So we have a new type, which is only for the Matsudan, the sword fighting Haniwa duelist, and the marionette phantom is also a Haniwa phantom. So there we have a few changes in there too. So it's, even if you have a few Matsudan and marionettes from like this edition, or from the Styrians, you can play them, test them, and they will be quite the different army.
Yeah, I can attest that. And there's a few new big models in there as well.
Yes.
Tell us about some of the big ones. So you have to ignore my dog who's wandering around in the background.
I'm pretty sure the list will be out when this goes live. And if not, these are minor spoilers, which will be spoiled in a few days anyway. So I don't mind. Big monsters, yes. Today on Facebook was a picture was released from the Daidara Bocchi.
Oh yeah.
A new walker with 4 legs and 2 loadouts. It was shown only 1 loadout for now. It has 2 loadouts. It's a big 60mm Strider-like walker, but really different from a normal Strider.
It looks amazing. They've done such a good job with that. It really fits kind of the Japanesey feel and the Matsudan in general.
Yeah, and it's not like, okay, this is a Matsudan as a big mech, but it really shows that this is something more. The Daidarabochi, again, in Japanese mythology, is like a giant that is also responsible for like making mountains and the earth and so on. This one is something where you really see the tradition and history of the Matsudan. It's not just like, it's me in big and robot thing. Yeah. And it's something completely new, different looking than we have, not just another Strider or walker in general. So I'm really happy, and it has a few interesting twists that other walkers don't have. And I'm quite happy with that one. Yeah. The second bigger model, or we have 2 other bigger models, not size 4.
Yeah, there is, you're right, yeah.
And now the ones who looked at the firefight list will be, okay, what? We have a few things in the Deadzone list which are exclusive to Deadzone. Mostly because the Matsudan here are something unique and not part of the Assyrians. So we wanted more. And one obvious thing, which is in the vault now for a few months, is the Kaichudan. So finally, from Overdrive over the vault, the Kaichudan makes its appearance in the Matsudan list as like a mecha Godzilla spewing death and destruction and stomping through the battlefield. Quite the nice support option if you like kaijus.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the third one, I can say that too. We have a very interesting leader in there, the Ronin. I hope everyone has seen the picture. It's an amazing looking model, combining the normal aesthetic you have from the Matsudan, but you see that he's a loner. He goes around doing his own stuff. He's an outcast, and you see that. And you see that in the rules too, because there is a new rule. And if you listen to the Countercharge podcast again, the firefighters, he spoke about that. He has a rule named Outcast, where he doesn't grant, where he and honorable models have I don't want to spoil it, have an interesting interaction where maybe the one won't help the other, because Outcast and honorable doesn't work. Wow. But he can bring his skill set and maybe let that the other honorable members of his team do some not so honorable things because they follow him.
Interesting. You mentioned honorable a few times there.
Yes.
Honorable was a big disadvantage to the Matsudan when they're in the Asterians list. Has it changed slightly? I think you alluded to the fact it has been tweaked a little bit, hasn't it?
Yes. I think honorable was loved for the theme and hated for the gameplay. Especially if you're playing an only Matsudan list, it was really hurting. And when we were playtesting the Matsudan early on, if like nearly the whole army has honorable, a few things are really hard to play around with. So we tweaked it a bit, made it better, and thought about what is honorable. And it's not honorable for an enemy to run away and you don't slap him, because the honorable thing is to fight like an honorable Matsudan. And so this you can disengage for free without when breaking away without getting hit. This is gone now. And many Matsudan have tenacious on top because they want to fight you. And if you run away, you're not honorable. So you're not stupid anymore and saying it's honorable. Now you're really honorable. A few things like the suppression thing is still there, a bit tweaked for a few more options. You will see that if you look at the rule, which is important for gameplay reasons, and it feels just better. And as I already said, even the marionettes have honorable, the Matsudan have mostly honorable, so we needed to change that, and it works really fine. But we have also not honorable models in there too.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got really exciting things on the horizon with Deadzone. 2 new factions. we've got the Vault, churning out these fantastic strike teams at the minute as well. So what have we got on the horizon? The future of Deadzone, from where I'm sitting, looks quite bright. Have we got anything kind of looming over the horizon at the minute?
Yes. I think I can't say too much, but I think Ronnie at least hinted that there will be something coming for Deadzone. And I think this year, it's like the third year of this edition, of the third edition. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have any updates yet, despite like these themed lists now in the Summer of Sci-Fi, which is really pushing with 2 new factions. And there will be something, a new book where the new armies will be in there, obviously. And I think it's time now to look also at the balance update and a few other gadgets, which might also be teased here and there. And if you look closely, you might have noticed that maybe something is there that can be used in the future for Deadzone. So Brian from Deadzone the podcast, shout out here too, mentioned something about, maybe if this is a tease, so go listen to the podcast. Maybe you then know what I mean. And we have much more in store for Deadzone. It's been, I think, an awesome edition. The third edition really delivered. I feel, not only because I worked on it too, I have to say that, right? But I think it wasn't groundbreaking, something new from the second edition. It was just like tidying up things, making things better, more different missions, and so on. And the balance is quite good, but not where it could be. And I think we from the RC are working now for over a year or even more on balance updates. We've been collecting many things, playtesting extremely many things together with the 2 new factions and the themed list and so on. So there will be something coming. When, I can't say, or I won't say that. Let's say it that way. But I think Deadzone is in a really good spot now, and the themed list and the Vault really helped to push it again. The Summer of Sci-Fi Firefight was great last year with command protocols coming out. It really helped the game get even better, and there was just more going on in this Warpath universe. And I think after like the Firefight update, now it's getting time for Deadzone to shine, and this summer is already a good starting point to really get the people in there. Those Kings of War players who have the Vault subscription, just try out the themed list, get through the rules. I know they are maybe not the best for beginners, or take your Nightstalker army.
Definitely.
Buy another one and get them on round bases. Why not? They look awesome. Or get
I've got quite a lot of Matsudan, but I'm like, interesting. Shall I have more Matsudan?
Yeah. So, and I think playing both Firefight and Deadzone, you love everything, because you can get an all Matsudan Firefight team if you want to, or like an Assyrian team with a few Matsudan units for Firefight, and then you have 2 factions for Deadzone. It's awesome. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to a time where we can talk a bit more about things on the horizon for Deadzone, because
I'll
we have plenty of ideas
and talk about some more stuff in the future then. Well, thank you so much for all the information you give us today. I'm really looking forward to getting some of these teams onto the table, and hopefully someone will make it to the channel as well. So, and
also, Way of Fire is back, baby. Finally, we've been talking about it for quite some time now, and I'm glad that we finally made it.
I think you are partially responsible for giving me the push I needed to get us going. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Deadzone is live. You know that.
Definitely. Right. Well, I will leave it there, and thank you so much for everything. Okay, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah, bye.